It seems that nowadays, choosing your next car is pretty overwhelming. So many new brands and models have entered the UK market, and with the extra influx of EVs, it's hard to think which way to turn. Sometimes you just want an old reliable something that's proved and tested. And that's where this car comes in, the Renault 5 E-Tech Electric. Yes, the Renault 5 is back on the UK market. Renault have reimagined this legendary car, bringing back that 70s classic, and let me tell you, it is back with a bang. Obviously, it's had a very much modern revamp. It's now an EV, but I still think it stays true to its character, not just being a good, well-rounded car, but also being an affordable car, because this car starts from just £23,000, and you can see what offers we currently have across the Renault 5 range on the Glyn Hopkin Renault website. Now let's take a trip down memory lane and cast our minds back all the way to 1972, when the Renault 5 hit the UK roads and become an instant hit, paving the way for many cars to follow, including the Renault 5 Alpine, one of the first ever hot hatches. The Renault 5 continued to keep its head above water until it was effectively replaced by the Clio in 1990. However, the R5 has made its return, but is it a turn up for the books, or will we be wishing it was kept in the archives? So with this car having that rich history, I think it was vital that Renault really give some thought and effort into the look of this car. And the one thing I find interesting about the Renault 5 E-Tech Electric is you can tell it's a brand new car. However, on the flip side, you can look at this from afar and think, hang on, is that a Renault 5? So yes, it's a modern car, but it's clearly stuck to the roots. Renault haven't just taken the Renault 5 name and slapped it on a large SUV. They've really stuck to the roots, and especially in today's car market when we're influx with larger SUVs, it's nice to know that they're still giving the hatchback a thought, and what a good looking hatchback it is. The design features, the LED headlights, they have so much thought. You know, you've got the little French flag, you have them little accents which are all unison within the car, and one thing I definitely like, you have a 5 on the bonnet. Now that actually doubles up as a battery indicator. There are 5 segments on that number 5, and they light up according to how much range you got left, and just features like that really just make this car stand out and almost give credit to the previous legendary Renault 5. Coming to the side down, well, the story carries on. You have 18-inch alloy wheels across the range. Top specs have that number 5 branding across this car. You have contrasting gold strip, and overall it's just a very bold car. Look at the side, it doesn't look like a compact hatchback. It borderlines a hot hatch, and that I like, especially, as I said, with them wheel arches which are accentuated outside of the car. Coming to the back, and I just think the design of this car is so well rounded off. It's almost 3 different segments that all work perfectly in unison, because you have these unique style rear lighting, you have them LED rear lights, you have that bold strip with the Renault 5 branding across the back. That gold strip, as mentioned, at the side runs all the way through. Just look at the back end of that car. As I said, it feels like a hot hatch, and I think it drives like one as well, which we'll get on later into the video. Now coming to the boot capacity, and you might look at this car and think, well, that's clearly got one of the smallest boot sizes on the car market. Well, that's kind of where you're wrong. Now, it's certainly not one of the biggest. It has 326 litres. Now, to put that into context, the brand new Mini Cooper Electric, which would kind of rival this off against, you know, a small EV that's affordable, practical for your everyday today drive. Now, the Mini Cooper Electric only has 210 litre boot capacity. So you get 126 litres more in the Renault 5, and for a lot cheaper as well. Seems like Renault have hit all the marks when it comes to design, practicality and affordability of the Renault 5. And that great design certainly carries on in the interior of this car, because I still feel that it's given a nod to the predecessor, despite obviously having all their modern luxuries that you expect. Likewise with the 10.3-inch infotainment screen, which sweeps right across the digital dash. Now, your digital dash actually implements your built-in Google Maps as well, and also displays, you know, all your driving information, your battery range, etc, etc. And I just think having that Google Maps in your digital dash just adds to that sense of luxury. So with this car only starting from £23,000, you kind of think, are Renault actually making any money from this? Because I think Renault have really been considerate when it comes to the price and specs of this car. Because the base spec has everything you need in terms of safety, drive convenience. It has Apple CarPlay and Android Auto as standard, and you also get things like cruise control as standard. Now, the base spec starts at just £23,000, and there are 3 specs to choose from, going all the way up to the £29,000 mark. Now, you do actually get 2 battery size options, 120 and 150. Now, the latter, the 150, can produce 0 to 60 in just 7.9 seconds, and also managed to travel 252 miles with that electric range. But if you're looking for an even more affordable car, then the base spec starts at £23,000 with that 120 horsepower battery. You can still get an electric mile range for 193 miles. So if you don't do a lot of driving, if you can charge at home, then it just almost seems like a no-brainer, because you're getting a very good looking car for a very low price. There's not many cars on the market that has this amount of style and features and uniqueness. It really stands out. And why do you want to fit in? The 150 horsepower battery also allows for 100 kilowatt fast charging, means you can get 50 from 80% in just 30 minutes. So you'll be spending less time at service stations charging and more time enjoying the Renault 5, because I think it should be enjoyed. It's a really iconic car, and it's also really fun to drive. Now, as I'm sure you've all probably realised by now, that I'm definitely too young to remember the original Renault 5, that 1970s classic. However, I've got a feeling that this car is doing its predecessor very proud indeed. You know, in a car world as of today that's inundated with new SUVs, new bigger cars constantly coming out, that's sort of the push and what people want. It's nice to see the hatchback get some love for a change. It's not often you see a brand new hatchback model come out, especially as one as good looking as this and actually has some heritage. Now, as for the drive and performance, well, the smaller battery, the 40 kilowatt hour, does 0 to 60 in 9.3. The bigger battery, the 52, does 0 to 60 in 7.9. And as you can see, I've just pulled out onto a dual carriageway there, no issue at all. Yes, this is a bigger battery, 7.9 second 0 to 60 time, and it's not one of the quickest EVs out there, you've got to admit, but it's more than enough. I do feel it's got a bit of zippiness about it. Obviously, with being an EV, it's going to have that instant torque off the line. It's going to be that bit more snappier than your regular combustion engine vehicle, especially, you know, a small hatchback that you might use city car. In terms of like convenience when you're on the road, the big factor for me is the fact that your climate controls are all separate. You don't have to go into the infotainment screen, and also the fact that the driver's display also includes your Google Maps built in, whilst also seeing your range, seeing your battery percentage, seeing your traffic sign recognition and your speed that you're currently doing. So yeah, it's not the biggest screen in the world. There's certainly bigger ones out there on the car market, but it's all very user friendly, it's all very readable, and I think they fit the space very well. It's a small car, it's built to be a small car, and for some people that might not work, but for people who enjoy small cars, I guarantee you'll enjoy this. Even from the base spec, you will get a well-rounded package with cruise control and speed limiter, sign recognition, hill start assist and rear parking sensors, all as standard. Mid-spec brings you adaptive cruise control and parking camera, and the top spec will also provide hands-free parking. But coming back to the interior, and I mentioned about the infotainment screen, you have Google built in, you have the Play Store, you have Google Assist, so it's all voice controlled, you have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, which is wireless, which comes from standard. Nice big wireless phone charging pad, you have a nice little cubby hole for your key there, decent amount of storage, you know, it's removable, 2 cup holders, a little bit of storage in the centre console. It's not space in abundance, but you know, you have a bit of space in your pockets, you have a decent sized glove box. I think they've kind of utilised the space in this car well for the, you know, the base that they have in this car. It's not a big car, but you still get a good amount of storage. I like how on the air vents you have the same style as on the daytime running lights, you know, the ambient lighting which contrasts this cloth along the dashboard. I do really like the design of this car. It feels a bit funky, it feels a bit out there. Nice style seating, nice hugging bucket seats. You have lumbar support. Yes, you don't get any electronically adjustable seats across the Renault 5 range. It's a bit of a letdown, but it's not really that big of an issue. How hard is it to do that? Let's be real. Steering wheel, decent amount of adjustment, bring it in and out, up and down, all very practical. You have multiple driving modes on the multi-sense, which can be changed on the steering wheel, and these are comfort, eco, sport and personal. When you do change between them driving modes, the colour on your digital dash, the colour of the logo, the colour of the ambient lighting all syncs up and changes. And again, them little touches just really make this car unique. And coming into the back, it's kind of what you expect from a small car. There's not that much legroom. There's not really any storage at all, to be honest. There's a tiny pocket here to put maybe some little shrapnel change, but you know, there's no cup holders. You have a little bit of pockets in the back of the seats. I mean, the seats are comfy, decent amount of headspace. You do get that rear privacy glass, so it, you know, sort of makes it a bit more comfier. But ultimately, how many times have you driven a small hatchback and it's been full of people? Normally, if you're getting this size car, it's probably just you and one other. You know, I can imagine this being a good little runabout car for a family. You have your large SUVs for long road trips, so you can have the kids in the back. But if you need a second car, if you're working from home or you're off work and you don't actually need to drive far, then this is perfect for you. If you can charge at home, it's really low cost in terms of actually getting the car, and it's low cost to run. But in that scenario, and you do have a young child, don't worry, there are ISOFIX points in the back, and there's still a decent amount of space. You'd still be comfortably have a baby seat or a child seat in the back of it, and they will be safe. As I said, the Renault 5 is mainly going to be a good runabout vehicle, good for doing nipping to the shops, getting to and from work in a tidily fashion. And sometimes that's all you need. You don't need fast and furious. You can't just want pleasant. You want comfort, and you want practicality. And I feel like the Renault 5 certainly does all that and more.